Minnesota Gophers are a 7.5-point favorite. What are your thoughts?
You are Locked On Huskers, your daily podcast on the Nebraska Cornhuskers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey gang, DP here, Locked On Huskers. Thank you for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every single day. Greatly appreciate it. This is the Thursday edition, so buckle in, settle in, and let's get this done. But first, Mark Onweiler, if you would, kind sir, let him know about Nutrafol.
Thank you, DP. This episode of Locked On Huskers is brought to you by LinkedIn. Now, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. It's super easy to do. If you are watching this on a computer or on your phone, your computer skills are good enough to create a LinkedIn Jobs posting. You add your job and then the purple #hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. And as you know, making that right hire makes all the difference. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. Now, LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. DP, back to you.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Thank you for what you do. Again, thank you for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every single day. If you have not, click pause, hit the subscribe button, get it done. I want your comments. I want your commentary. Hook a brother up. As it says, we've set this thing up for you. So if you get to the part of your screen, you go up the screen over here. It tells you what we're doing. Minnesota seeking toughness. Gophers look to make a statement. All of these things are what we're going to cover in the course of said episode. Again, happy Thursday, Husker Nation, as we drive ourselves through. And I was informed that the Minnesota Gophers are, in fact, a 7.5-point favorite when they face the Huskers August 31st. And there's lots of work and lots of questions in play. A couple of things in that. 7.5 points. 7.5 points. In Minneapolis. Husker Nation, I ask you, and you can put your comments down in the comment section, or you can put them in the comments of whatever social media feed that you're getting this from. Go on YouTube. You can do that, Twitter, whatever way you want to do it. But here's the question. 7.5 points. Michigan, Minnesota as the favorite. Are you taking Minnesota in that and giving the points? Or are you taking the Huskers? Bigger question. Why? Why? We'll cover that throughout the course of this thing because Minnesota, PJ Fleck, again, he's a talker. He's smooth, got a little car salesman swagger in him. Of course, it's a BMW car salesman, so he's got a little extra swagger because he knows the product is good and it has value. He's making statements in Minneapolis. He was thankful, grateful, and appreciative to local media who voted him and his Gophers into the top 25 with plans of being in the top 25 and never leaving, setting a standard of expectation for the Minnesota Gophers. And then speaking to toughness. Toughness. Sound familiar? Coaches in the Big Ten Conference understand that toughness is at the top of the pyramid of things that your team has to possess in order to have success in the upcoming season. We'll talk about those things, but I ask again, 7.5 points. You leaning Gophers minus the 7.5? Or are you taking the Huskers plus 7.5 and why? The question then becomes, what do you believe about Minnesota to be true? Change of leadership. Tanner Morgan is gone. Understand that. Mo Ibrahim, gone. 3 offensive linemen, gone. Does that tell you that there is a change in talent level at Minnesota or that they just turned it over, rolled it over? Because as we go through the numbers, and I want to be clear in some of what we're talking about. There are players who have stepped into play for Minnesota, and as they battle, and they, in fact, have not decided on a lot of positions. But Kaliak Manis at quarterback, Cole Kramer as a redshirt senior, a veteran quarterback behind your redshirt sophomore, replacing Tanner Morgan. Bryce Williams and Sean Tyler. He's a senior transfer, stepping in from O. Ibrahim. Bryce Williams, a redshirt senior. The quote from PJ Fleck was running back by committee. Can't expect anybody to come in and get that 30-plus carry effort that Ibrahim was giving them. Doesn't expect it. Doesn't mean it won't happen, just means he doesn't expect it. He expects to be able to distribute. Brevin Spanford, a redshirt senior at tight end. This is a dude. This is a dude. He's got a redshirt senior next to him, Nick Callerup. Listen, the Gophers have talent. If I said to you the offensive line is replacing three seniors from last year, but they're replacing them with redshirt seniors. They're replacing them with veteran players who've been a part of the program, who understand what it takes, what PJ Fleck is going to need, and these are ground shakers, and these are the defender movers. These are big boys who are athletes with a little bit of snot to them. They like to play snot bubble football, which means they will put face mask to face mask and hit you so hard they're checking for snot bubbles. Redshirt seniors up and down the line, right? Tyler Cooper, Nathan Bowe, Quinn Carroll, Martinez Lewis is a redshirt junior, and Ursery is also a redshirt junior. But veteran folks, and then behind them, they're a bit young, a bit green behind those starters, those projected starters, right? But they do have redshirt senior. Backup at right tackle, redshirt senior. Backup at center. Interior lineman, Carter Shaw is a redshirt senior. Behind him, and Carter will be flex. So Nebraska's familiar with having an internal guy that can flex between guard and center. And then after that, it becomes redshirt freshman along the way. At receiver, this is a veteran, and talented group at Minnesota. So as Nebraska looks forward and tries to figure out what it's going to do in the 3-3-5, well, Minnesota will tell you. We can spread you out with three receivers. We can spread you out with three receivers, two tights. We can empty the backfield. We can put four receivers out there with a tight end. We can put three receivers, two tight ends, or they could stick with the running back. But Daniel Jackson, Chris Ottman-Bell, and Corey Coleman Jr., these are all seniors. These are all veteran wide receivers. 3 on, 3 out. Imagine a nickel back will have to take one of these 1A receivers. And this is 1A, 1B, and 1C. There's no number 2 in this group. These are all top-level, productive, efficient seniors at the receiver position. And behind them, then you get into some space where you got a redshirt freshman, a transfer junior, and a redshirt sophomore behind them that they all expect to play and produce. And of those 6 receivers that we talked about and the 2 tight ends, these are all edge setters. These are all physical guys who are willing to block for the run game. They have no problem with throwing their bodies into space. Nebraska is familiar with it. They saw them last season, end of game last season, fourth quarter. It was Minnesota simply fattening the neck, straightening their back up, and sending 10 offensive players or 9 offensive blockers at Nebraska, trying to move the chains long enough to kill the clock, which they did. Toughness will be a part of it. But don't get lost in it, because with the toughness opens up athleticism. And Minnesota has some talent. Nebraska has numbers at its advantage and an unknown in the 3-3-5 defense and Tony White and its play call. Toughness will matter. Toughness will save the day, but there's more to it than that. 7.5 points. Again, I'm open to your suggestion and your idea with where to bet. When we come back and jump the other side of the ball, talk a little bit more about what PJ Fleck is talking about with this Minnesota defense and what can be expected. What can be expected? Marcus Satterfield has his hands full a battle on the road in Minneapolis, August 31st. We'll be right back to Locked On Huskers. Hey, gang. Welcome back to Locked On Huskers. DP here. Thank you for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every single day. And we appreciate you hanging out. Again, hit the subscribe button if you haven't. Share the content. Put it on social media. Let folks know. Again, you can go through your own conversations here. On the defensive side of the ball, this is a statement group for PJ Fleck. They will be as talented as that offense is. And I think the offensive advantage that Minnesota has had against previous Nebraska teams, we're not sure how that's going to play out. There were some notable disadvantages when Minnesota's offense was on the field versus Nebraska's defense. There was some curiosity and some concern. There was some confusion. Like Nebraska didn't always line up the right way. They didn't understand the reads. They weren't always in play. But it's a different group now with Tony White. Different scheme, different possibilities. But with a fresh and a new 3-3-5, two of those new defensive linemen will be new and fresh. PJ Fleck may decide with those grown men, transfer seniors that he has on his offensive line, he may say, hey, we're just going to eat the clock up and we're just going to lean on you. And we'll see how it plays out. The defensive side of the ball for PJ Fleck, it is important for us to think about it now. Again, Marcus Satterfield lining up against with new offensive players, new schemes, new players in places. Jeff Sims is the thing that you circle the most because his ability to break down this defense based on called plays. Will he be able to adapt and adjust actively? Will his game situation be under control with Jeff Sims? Not to try to do too much and throw it in the lanes and throw it into traffic because Minnesota's defensive backs, these are grown-ups. These are grown-ups. If you make a mistake and put a ball in play, you want one, you'll circle this thing. High throws will get you in trouble. High throws end up in tip drill with turnovers. And Nebraska offensively has to circle the big three things and say, we've got to win the turnover battle, which means a kick has to finish the drive, either a field goal, extra point, or a punt. It cannot be turned over on downs, and it cannot be handed over to them with a turnover. Don't put the ball on the turf. Don't penalize yourself with false starts, worrying about who the guys are on the edge and where they're coming from and whether you can handle them. No holding penalties. They're just not necessary. Holding penalties are penalties of chaos. It means you got caught in a physical situation or a scheme situation and didn't have a plan for how you were going to execute, right? Calmness gets you through chaos. So just trust your teammates, trust yourself. Hand placement is vital when it comes to Minnesota. They're in an angle defense, so they will put pressure on you. They'll try to turn you towards the sideline. They'll try to turn you towards the middle of the field. And once they turn you, then it's turnover city. And you have to stay away from that. So flat back, settling the space, power offensive running game against this defense will be helpful. But this is a group that has talent. You've got a redshirt junior in Ja Joyner at the right defensive end, and he's the pressure guy. He's the athlete. He is the smooth operator. Jalen Logan Redding is another junior. He's a bit of a monster. Can eat up downs 1 and 2. He's a better run and pass defender, whereas Joyner is the better pass defender in getting pressure on quarterbacks. I like Logan Redding's engine, but this is a matchup because he's going to line up against, drumroll, Nebraska's left tackle, whoever that is. Nebraska fans just had a visceral reaction to the idea of an elite pass rusher on the edge with the back door to Jeff Sims needing to be protected. Kyler Baugh is a senior transfer, has starts under his belt, great leadership. And behind him, there's another, Logan Richter, who is also a redshirt senior. Devin Eastern is a redshirt sophomore, but He's going to be the key to Minnesota's success offensively. Why? He's the audible. Remember that you have had Kaliak. Why can I never say his name? Kaliak Manis needs help with the deciphering of defenses, and he's relying on a redshirt sophomore to do so. Their communication, their ability to trust one another, to be able to think for each other, speak to each other in code, it is vital. It's absolutely vital that this happens. And here's the matchup that I want you to think about. Imagine Ty Robinson having that sort of presence defensively for Nebraska. Well, this is in play. This is important. Kyler Ball is a horse. Senior transfer, he will determine how this thing plays out defensively. Devers Eastern, a redshirt sophomore, probably as strong as anybody on Nebraska's defensive front. Forklift situation, he's a space eater in the middle. They've got a rush defensive end in Denny Strigow, who's a senior, has numbers on the board already coming in. Another pressure guy. Imagine him moving around against the right tackle and right guard. How comfortable do you feel in having an elite pass rusher in the face of Jeff Sims against Bryce Benhart and Tanner Corcoran? And that they're going to have to make decisions on how they block this guy. Why? Because behind them is Cody Lindenberg, redshirt junior, who can put pressure. Think Luke Reimers for Nebraska. And you're going to wiggle him off the edge and then stunt with him inside against Benhart and Corcoran. Unless Corcoran's on the other side, you're going to have a plan for the chaos that they're going to bring into place. At middle linebacker, they're set. Ryan Seelig, redshirt senior, is a monster. He's a monster. He's a transfer in, but the reports out of Minneapolis is that great play caller, great high IQ, identifies otherwise, and then he's working really well in the offseason, but he has to because there's an X factor. Joey Gerlach is a redshirt freshman, and he's going to play the Sam linebacker. If Nebraska is going to have run success, this is where it's going to have to be. Imagine Nuri and Ethan Piper going against this redshirt freshman. It is a winnable situation for Nebraska. If they do not have an advantage there, consider Nebraska. And Nebraska's going to have to be successful there. They also run 4 defensive backs, but one of them is really kind of a nickel. His idea is to take on the slot. The matchup with Jack Henderson, who's a senior transfer. Imagine him against Billy Kemp in the slot. That's where this is going to happen. Free safety Tyler Newbern, he's a redshirt senior, knows it. He spent time on the field. But this is a Marcus Washington situation. Trayvon Jones, redshirt senior transfer, versus Marcus Washington and Isaiah Garcia Castaneda. Nebraska will have some opportunities. Jeff Sims pulling the ball down and making these other playmakers take their eyes off these receivers. There will be opportunities for Nebraska. Whether they can capitalize on them, they're looking for mistakes. Opportunities are there. Folks, there's an opportunity. Toughness will be the play. And again, that's both Matt Rule's word and that's PJ Fleck's word. The statement will be made in who's willing to commit to that toughness and then who has to go to their passing game to get away from toughness to help finish this ball game out. I have a feeling this is a four-quarter slug out. The pieces match up. The puzzle seems to fit. There will be opportunities for everybody. Experience, playmakers, and then in-game adjustments will matter. We'll talk about those 3 things when we come back to Lockdown. Hey, gang, once again, thank you for hanging out on a Thursday. Lockdown Huskers DP. Appreciate you folks for hanging out with us. Again, subscribe if you haven't done so. Let's get this content. Let's get those Husker numbers up. These are good numbers. These are not Husker type level numbers, but I'll hold you to that. In-game management. An experienced coaching staff who knows its players and knows where the talent is and how people are going to react in situations, versus a coaching staff with a new head coach, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, and a roster that looks different than it did a year ago. You have some redshirt freshmen on the Nebraska side on the defensive corners that will play into this thing. And if Minnesota decides that they're going to start the game by simply out-toughing Nebraska, and Nebraska's commitment is to never be out-toughed by anybody, a little smash-mouth football may take some time to get points on the board. I don't care how it starts. I think it ends up in a slugfest. But I think a key thing is going to be how Nebraska's assistants, how its coordinators and its assistants adjust in-game. And then Matt Rule's reaction to what PJ Fleck is doing. We don't know what Matt Rule's in-game adjustments are going to look like. We don't. Marcus Satterfield, we have some resume and some tape with him at South Carolina and what he did in either fall behind situations or out front situations. You have to have plans for both. We don't know. Does Nebraska come out the gate and get up big? Does Minnesota come out the gate and get up big? Or does it stay connected? Either way, coaches will have to adjust in game. And personnel matters. Depth will matter. And both of these teams have quarterbacks who are athletic, who can make big throws when needed. They have receivers. You have some options, some veteran receivers. Again, give Nebraska credit. Billy Kemp is a veteran. Marcus Washington's a veteran. Joshua Fleeks is a veteran. Tight ends that can catch the ball in space. And there's a slight nod to Minnesota because we've seen their tight ends at work. We haven't seen Nebraska's at work. We've seen Borkature, but I'm not sure that Borkature is the thing that is the name that you circled to identify how Nebraska's tight end play will be graded and evaluated. Running backs, I'm actually going to give the advantage to Nebraska. Anthony Grant, Gabe Ervin. Gabe Ervin had some success last year before the injury. Anthony Grant, we saw the 500-yard games and to start the season. We saw what that was. And then Jeff Sims is – look, both he and Kaliak Manis are both X factors. Both teams may work from running back by committee. We will see. And the telltale will be coaches' in-game adjustments. Can you handle success? Can you deal with adversity? And then who is willing to stay connected and make good decisions down the stretch when things get sticky? And they will. 7.5 points is what the experts say Minnesota should be favored by. I have a feeling that number will make some folks uncomfortable. Put your comments in below on whether you think Nebraska plus 7.5, Minnesota minus 7.5. You're not wrong today. You cannot be wrong. That's the beauty of that. We'll see you Friday. We'll see you tomorrow. Locked On Huskers. Thank you for making it. First, watch and listen each and every single day, and we'll close with the 3 words we love so much. Go Big Red.